Hello, welcome to another episode of the Self on Self podcast. I'm your host, Goroon, and it's been quite a while since I've done one of these. I should have specified in the first episode that this was originally never going to be something I did consistently. It was just going to, this whole thing was just kind of just a test for me to see how long I could go for, talking. Without having to stutter or pause or anything. I know I'm not doing a great job right now, but I thought if I did it enough, I'd get better at it. In a sense, it's kind of like a lot of musicians, what they like to do is they kind of like to record themselves for as long as they can and see how long they can go without, either messing up or missing a beat or, just doing something incorrect. If you ever heard of the Foo Fighters, last year Dave Grohl did something like that. He had this one song called Play, which was just basically just 24 minutes of him just playing on his own because he just wanted to do an experiment like that. And that's kind of in a sense what I wanted to do with this podcast specifically. I do plan on maybe doing it more consistently in the future, but for the moment it's just kind of just an experiment. Although I don't want to go another 4 months without making another episode. So for anyone who's eager to hear another episode of the Self on Self podcast, congratulations. Although I should mention that I did originally try to make an episode about 2 months ago. I mainly talked about my overall thoughts on the newest PBG Hardcore series, Minecraft Season 7. And I don't know, just I didn't enjoy the whole thing itself. I felt like I sounded forced. I felt like there wasn't enough that I talked about. I felt like it just wasn't good enough, for my standards at least. But I guess since I'm here, I might as well just mention them slightly because I did promise one guy who commented on the Hardcore Got Boring video that I talk about them in a podcast. I don't know if I meant that sincerely or I was just using that as an excuse to, shut him up, but. Although I should mention that I've probably talked about this before, but I do consider that hardcore video to be one of my best ones. Of course, I made it in a time where, every YouTuber ever was making a why blank sucks or why blank is terrible and you're terrible for enjoying it. I know I did it at that time, and I felt like I was jumping on a bandwagon a little bit, but I kind of structured it in a way where it was like I'm pointing out criticisms, but I'm also, talking about how I would fix it if I was, in PBG's shoes or something. And that's something that I feel like all those types of videos should, try to be. Of course, a lot of them do that. They do, talk about how, they would want to improve a product or improve a movie or anything. But for a good handful of, all the ones that I've seen where it's just like the cartoon persona, talking about why Star Wars is an SJW piece of shit or whatever, it's just like, hey, here's why, for instance, The Last Jedi sucked. And here are no reasons why or how I would make The Last Jedi better. So, with that out of the way, so in terms of PBG's Hardcore Season 7, I thought it was kind of a mixed bag. There were things that I did like and things that I didn't like about it. For starters, I really liked the whole lineup of guests. I thought, Youngtown and Brown Man. It's so weird saying his name out loud because like, ooh, that sounds a little bad. And Barry and Dean and PBG. I thought that was a really good lineup, But, of course, things got a little... things went south very quickly for, a moment. And then, nothing else happened for, 20 episodes. And then things started going really, really south again right at the end. And then I love how the last few episodes were basically just Season 5 again of just PBG and Jeff just, dicking around and being like, we're going to do it. We're going to beat the Ender Dragon, just the two of us. And then they don't do it. Sorry for spoilers. It's been done for 3 months or whatever, but sorry for the spoilers in case if you didn't see it. Things that when it comes to the things that I did like, again, it was the roster, but I'm kind of split in between with the whole idea of the positional audio thing. Now, the reason for that is because it seemed like a really cool idea. And when they first did it in the first few episodes, it kind of was, you know? It was interesting because it gave it a more like, you know, you have to work together as a team and you can't really like just go out on your own, because if you do, there are consequences to doing that. And so, you know, it was cool for the first few episodes, but the thing is that like throughout the series, most of the time they were always in a group, so you'd never really the positional audio never really like came into fruition or was ever like significant to an extent, you know what I mean? Like, of course, a few times, you know, they would, like, the team would branch out and, like, do other things, but, and that was, like, the few points where, like, it was obvious that the positional audio was there, but for the most part, they were together as a group for a lot of the time, and so, like, the most you would ever get out of the positional audio was just hearing, like, someone else, you know, really on you in your right or your left ear, and it'd be like, oh, I guess that's kind of okay, I guess. It did also get kind of annoying after a while, because this is my whole problem with positional audio. It's very distracting for me, at least, because sometimes it'll like transitions between ears too quickly, or, you know, it won't sound like they're actually either really close or really far away. It'll just sound like it's normal audio. And so, you know, that's something that they can't really fix, because that's the whole point. That's like the problem with positional audio in and of itself. But it was just kind of like a drawback, you know what I mean, to using that type of mod. And I'm sure they planned it all out. I'm sure they've like tested it, but I just feel like that I don't really know what to say. I didn't really enjoy the positional audio as much as I think that I should have, in a sense. You know what I mean? One problem that I did have with the whole hardcore, the whole season, you know, in and of itself, was that there were no new guests, despite me liking the roster. I thought it was a good roster of, like, you know, returning guests, but I really do wish that they brought other people back, because I forget which season, because a little thing about me is after I make a video about something, I usually like to step away from whatever it is I was talking about, so I just kind of like, you know, distance myself from it, because when I'm making a video about something, that's really all I like give all my focus to, or like all my attention to. So like, for instance, when I made my Luigi's Mansion video, after I was done with that, I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna look at anything related to Luigi. I'm not gonna play any Luigi games. I'm not gonna do anything revolving around Luigi. And so, you know, as a result, that kind of, you know, that kind of same mentality was with me when I first did, you know, Hardcore got boring. After it was done, I was just like, okay, I'm done with watching hardcores. I'm done with everything. I'm just gonna take a break from it and just relax. But the point is that, like, it was always just, I forget which season, but I know there was a season before this one where, you know, there were no new guests, and it was just like, that was like, I think my biggest problem with that season in general. There are probably other problems as well, but I've always been one to feel like that the guests are probably one of the, if not the most important part of hardcore itself, because it was always just like, hey, check out all these cool YouTubers we've got, or, you know, just cool people, online personas, and check this out. We're gonna make them all play a game together, and they're gonna, you know, they're gonna have like mesh their personalities together and see what the fuck is gonna happen with this. It may go awesome, it may go terrible. Point is, it's gonna be fun, so let's have fun. And, you know, that's not saying that there wasn't any, like, it wasn't boring with the guests, or like there wasn't any chemistry or anything, but it's just always interesting to see, you know, who comes on next, because that's a part of like the excitement for each season. You're like, ooh, I wonder who's gonna show up this time, or like, you know, who someone who, you know, you never expect would like show up. Like, for instance, in season 2, I wouldn't have expected Nintendo Capri Sun to show up, but, you know, he did. And, you know, it's only been for one season, but it was still pretty cool to, like, see him there, because you really, not to, you know, insult anybody or anything, but it didn't seem to me, at least, that PBG would know NCS. I'm not really, like, I don't really know much about like all of his relationships or like his friend statuses with everybody. Although I do know him and John aren't like not really doing much anymore. But yeah, just the whole guest thing. That's really one of the biggest aspects about hardcore for me. I feel like when they don't bring in new guests, it's just kind of like, okay, this is cool, but I kind of wanted to see something more from this. And on that note too, I didn't really like the idea of how they just were like, we're going to do the Ender Dragon again, but it's going to be different because we have positional audio. Like, the positional audio was a cool idea, don't get me wrong. But that doesn't really seem like a good excuse for doing an objective you already done like 3 or 4 times in the past already. Now, it could be excusable if they never beat the Ender Dragon in the first place, which is, why they continuously fought the Wither multiple times throughout the season. They just beat him in 6, so I don't expect them to, try and beat him again in later seasons. But they already beat the Ender Dragon in the first season. The first ever season of both Minecraft and hardcore in general. So it just seems kind of redundant to go back and do it again. Now, you could argue that they want to go, to the End City or whatever it's called and, get the wings or whatever. But from my recollection, it was always just like, hey, we're going to go kill the Ender Dragon, and that's basically going to be it. Now, another point you could make is that, like, because of the seasons that they were doing them in, 1, 5, and now 7, especially with 5 and 7, they came out after like noticeable breaks, especially with 5. That was a whole new era of hardcore, and it kind of made sense. Like, hey, we're gonna go back to the roots. We're gonna do something more familiar to like ease the fans back into it, which was okay because people do this sort of stuff all the time. Take for instance, The Force Awakens with in Star Wars. It does have a lot of like similar aspects to Episode 4, but that was mainly due to like reintroduce fans into the series because there wasn't a Star Wars movie in at least over a decade at that point. So it does make sense in that regard, but when it comes to 7, it was just like, because originally they were going to do like the Shadow Forest mod or whatever that was teased at the end of Minecraft Season 6. It was Starbound, the Starbound hardcore. But I guess they couldn't either get like the mod to work, or they couldn't, the mod's creator didn't allow them to do it or anything, so they just kind of like jumped ship and changed it relatively close to when, that season was supposed to be out and ready to go. So maybe that's the case why they changed it and they just went back to something easy, familiar in that sense. But it's just I just want to make it clear that I'm still gonna watch hardcore. I still love it. I still have so much nostalgia for it, and I still enjoy it deeply. But it just, there's like, I don't want to say I'm upset with it, but it's more like I'm just on occasions disappointed with it. And I've been disappointed with it ever since like about Minecraft Season 6, I'd say. Because, when the series first came back from its hiatus back in like 2015 or whatever, and it was all like new and interesting, I was like, okay, there are a lot of cool aspects to it. But as it kind of went on, and I talked about all this, well, most of this stuff in the hardcore video itself, but just in general, at like halfway through this new era, I've just been kind of like less interested in hardcore itself and just feel like it's not as enjoyable as it used to be. I know that sounds like I just contradicted the fact that I still enjoy it, but I'd say more so it's like the seasons get interesting when they first start. They're interesting right out the gate. You're like, oh, there's going to be a cool new season. There's so much stuff that's going to come out. It's going to be awesome. And then gradually as the season goes on, it starts to get less and less interesting. Meanwhile, with seasons earlier, like, with Minecraft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 even, and like the Terraria seasons and even the MineZ seasons, they were all interesting. Well, most of them were interesting throughout. My favorite was always Diablo because, aside from it being like one of the lesser known ones, because it was like of a game that was kind of, I wouldn't say it was like not made for hardcore, because it definitely was, but in terms of like the games they were playing during that time, like, again, Minecraft, Terraria, DayZ, it was kind of out of left field because, the way Diablo's designed, it's very different than from Minecraft or Terraria. And so I respect them for, going the extra mile to, do such a thing, to branch out more. And I really hope that they do that again with the next season. Again, this was something that I talked about in the hardcore video itself, but I hope that they either, go find a new game, a completely new game that they haven't done a season of yet. They do another season of something like Diablo 2 or DayZ or even Starbound. Well, maybe wait a little bit with Starbound, because Starbound was a really, really long season. Or I hope that they, at the very least, go back to a game like Terraria. Or Terraria, because, MineZ and Minecraft had seasons relatively close to each other. If they're gonna do something like with a game going back to it, if they do something like Terraria, I hope that they, find a way to make it fresh and interesting, and they find a new objective to do. Because the whole problem with it is just that there's just this massive trend of repetition that just, there are new guests and there are new layouts and new, just the whole thing seems new. It has like a fresh new coat of paint. It just kind of draws out on the whole idea of like it being the whole season as a whole in general being unique and interesting. And I think that's the most important part about it. It's like you can have new editing, you can have new like layouts and stuff, you can have new assets, all that stuff, but you should still make what made hardcore in the first place. You should still make it enjoyable. And now is to watch, 7 or 8 random losers playing games together, fun. And I feel like when, you continuously bring back the same guests and you continuously do the same game again, that makes it less fun. So, back to Minecraft Season 7, it was okay. There were a lot of problems with it, but I feel like that was as a result of them, doing positional audio and like trying all sorts of new stuff. So I feel like that was not so much on them as it was more just like they didn't realize they just didn't realize everything beforehand. Let's just put it at that. I am excited to see what they do next, at least, because there hasn't been any talk of like a new season or whatever. I do know that this season Minecraft Season 7 was kind of another soft reboot to the series. It wasn't to the extent of like, Minecraft Season 5, but there were still, improvements and stuff. Like, I think new avatars and new icons for everybody in Season 7, and there were like new editing techniques and like new, just some new stuff that still, it made it still, stand out. And it showed like an extra, step into kind of like a third era, although I wouldn't say it was like as drastic of a change as the early seasons to these newer seasons. So I'd say that 7 is kind of a 2.5 era, where it's like it's not as ambitious in terms of the changes as from the earlier seasons to these seasons, but there still is a noticeable change where, you can still see there's progression. You know what I mean? I don't know. So that was basically all I wanted to talk about with, Minecraft or PBG's hardcore in general. But hold on, I'm going to take a sip of water. Now I want to transition into talking about the channel. So for the past, I'd say 2 years, I've been primarily making more educated videos in a sense. Like, for anybody who's been with me since like late 2014, like December of 2014, that I used to be just one of those stereotypical, young kids that plays games kind of YouTube channels, where it was just like, I wanted to be JonTron, and I just talked about, just a random game or a random TV show just for no reason. And there was just like, there wasn't much character to it, and it was something that everybody else, my age at least, or around my age, and who liked Nintendo was doing at the same time. This isn't calling anybody out, this isn't insulting anyone else who does it, but I know in terms of when I did it, there was like little substance to it, and so it was just like, why bother? Anyways, after that, around, April of 2017, I started making more educated videos, like I said. It started with the mains and alts of Nintendo, which I think is still a pretty decent video. I haven't watched it in a while. And yes, I do watch my videos from time to time. That's not me, that's not me being egotistical. That's me more so just like looking back on a video and seeing like what aspects I could fix and what aspects I thought were good at the time, and just, how I could improve. So it's more so like that. Although I do enjoy watching my videos just to hear myself. No, that's a joke. That's a lie. That's a dirty lie. Anyways, after that, ever since then, well, not necessarily, because I feel like I have had a few changes. From April to 2017 to about, actually April to 2018, I made videos very similar to, that whole idea of being more educated, having a more unique focus. I wouldn't say all the videos from that time span were good, but I still do, have a deep respect for some of them. Specifically, I'd say the manuals video, and probably the I think the Chowder and Flapjack video was pretty good. Although it did kind of like bring in a whole bunch of like, no offense, but a whole bunch of cartoon undesirables onto my channel, I still thought overall it was a pretty decent video. You know what I mean? But then about like, I think February of 2018, I started to change again. But the thing is that it wasn't a consistent change. It was more just me being really, really experimental with stuff. So the first thing I did was dusting off the Steam library. If you remember that one, it was basically just the one where it was me doing a live commentary of just a whole bunch of random-ass Steam games that I had in my library, which I do plan on doing another episode of in the near future. So, look out for that. But after that, I kind of took another huge break. Not necessarily huge, but in YouTube standards, huge. So about like 2 months, and then I just come back with this weird-ass video about a movie called Suburbicon, which, nobody saw. Let's be real. I only made that video about it because I hated it, and I just wanted to make this massive video essay. Not even an essay, just a venting video about why I hated it so much. That came out at a time where, like I said earlier in this podcast, it came out at a time where, people were starting to do all the overly long videos about why they hate something or why something's terrible. And so I did, like I said, I did kind of jump on that bandwagon a bit. It started with Suburbicon, although that was kind of my own thing, it was, because Suburbicon was like a really, really, really lesser known movie that like flopped horribly at the box office, and like I only saw it because I forget why I saw it. So it started with that, and then it went to the Zelda 2 video, which I thought was, I still think is okay. The game is obviously flawed, and I probably did take a lot of liberties into, further illustrating why I think it's bad. I probably went a little too far in a few spots, not saying like I said anything like offensive or mean or anything. It was just like I was hammering in like a few points that didn't need to be as big as they needed to be. But I did still do like the whole thing of like, here are all the problems with it and here's how I would fix it. So I'm glad I did that. And then also came the Hardcore Got Boring video. That was kind of in a sense a last hurrah for that little moment on my channel. Because the funny thing is that while that like while that era of me only existed for about 3 videos on my channel, the Suburbicon, the Zelda 2 one, the hardcore one, those were only 3 videos in the span of 5 months. Now, granted, the Suburbicon video got taken down because obviously it's a video about a movie, which I played clips of, so of course it's going to be taken down for copyright. But when I make 3 videos in the span of 5 months, I don't feel good about myself. I love making videos. I'm not going to lie. I always love doing it. I know I've never been, the biggest, YouTube channel. I've never, had that much popularity, but it's still, it's a fun hobby that I enjoy doing. And, I never plan on doing it for money. I never plan on, doing it as a life, doing it for, a job. I just like doing it just because it's fun. I've been doing it for so long, and I've learned so much about, like, editing and, like, how to properly structure a script, or, like, getting better at writing, and, like, getting better at, like, critiquing something. And so, it's just fun for me to do this. And when I don't make a video in the span of I make 3 videos in the span of 5 months, that doesn't make me feel really good about myself, I'm gonna be honest. Now, granted, each of those videos were like plus 15 minutes long. I know the Suburbicon was like 17. I think the Zelda 2 one was 22, and then the hardcore one was like half an hour, I think. But the point is that, like, I wasn't satisfied with doing that, because I didn't want to become, just another person who hates everything on YouTube and makes really long videos while having massive, like, just nothingness within, like, months. So after that, I kind of dialed down again. As I said, that hardcore video was kind of like a last hurrah for that, segment on my channel. And so after that, I kind of got into the spot where I am in today, where I kind of make videos like I did back in 2017, but I kind of give them more of a personality, and I don't even know really how to describe it, because back in 2017, I had, like, no personality at all. I was just like, because I was at the point where I started to watch Captain Christian videos, and, I don't know how many times I've talked about this, but I was just, at that point in time, I was just wanting to be Captain Christian. So, I had my videos, have editing, like, really, really, really supposedly high-end editing, according to, like, the audience or whatever. Of course, it was nowhere near as good as Captain Christian's. I talked in a very monotone voice. I had lo-fi hip-hop in the background. And I had, like, no consistency over what I talked about. Because, like, one episode it would be about Nintendo. The next it would be about Chowder and Flapjack. The next it would be about Eddsworld. The next it would be about an indie musician who nobody knows about. And it's like, it works for him, definitely. But it doesn't work for me. So I think after that I kind of realized, hey, I should figure out something that does work for me. And I feel like for a little bit, I did kind of realize that this what I'm doing now did work for me in the moment, but after the Luigi's Mansion video, my most recent one as of the time I'm recording this, I kind of realized that I don't necessarily enjoy making videos that are that long anymore, because I like making my videos around 4 to 6 minutes, because when they're that length, I feel like they're at a good enough length where it's like you don't have to dedicate yourself to, like, 10 to 15 minutes and be like, okay, I gotta set aside this much time to watch a video. Whereas with, a video that's only like 4 or 5 minutes, it's like, okay, this video is shorter, but that just means he'll get to his point in a faster amount of time, and hopefully he won't be just, like, goofing around the entire time. Because that's always what I worry about when I make longer videos. It's like, I have a point, which is why I'm making video. I have a point. I have an idea of what I want to say, but is it taking me too long to get to what I want to say? And is the video, like, longer than it should be? That's what I always ask myself whenever I make, like, a video that's over, like, I want to say 8 minutes. 8 minutes is kind of like my red flag zone. So kind of going forward, I want to, you know, kind of just keep myself in that range, you know, because with that, I'm able to do what I want to do. I'm able to say what I want to say in a short amount of time, and I don't waste time just talking about nothingness for just like 5 minutes and then finally getting to a point only for the video to end like 2 minutes later. Because to sidetrack a little bit, I do like the Luigi's Mansion video. I do think it's a good video. I do think I put a good amount of effort into it, but I feel like there was too much build-up to what I wanted to say about Luigi's Mansion. Like the first 5 or 6 minutes are just me making fun of Luigi and then explaining the landscape that Nintendo and Luigi were in at the time, which, you know, was okay if it's like just like a minute or two, but I remember it took me like 5 minutes to finally start talking about Luigi's Mansion. And then finally, when I did get to talking about Luigi's Mansion, I only talked about the game itself for like 3 minutes at most, and then I started to talk about like the aftermath of Luigi's Mansion and how it affected the character. Now, that's kind of what I wanted to go for from the beginning, but I wanted it to be like I would talk about the game more, like I give much more time to the game, and then I would talk about the aftermath, but it wouldn't be like as long as I talked about the game itself. So, in a sense, think of it like this way. The video was about, I want to say 12 minutes long. The first half was of me describing Luigi and the whole landscape, which didn't need to be as long as it did. And then the other half is me actually talking about Luigi's Mansion. But then that half is split in half. So, those are 2 quarters. The first quarter is of me talking about Luigi's Mansion, and then the second quarter is me talking about the aftermath. I would have much rather it have been a quarter of it is about Luigi and the landscape and before Luigi's Mansion, 75% of it is about Luigi's Mansion, and then 25% of it is the aftermath. And I didn't really follow that rule of thumb, and it just kind of went on to be more bloated and just not as good as I wanted it to be. I still enjoy it. I did put a lot of effort into it, but after a while with editing, it just kind of got to a point where I was like, oh my god, this is never gonna fucking end. I just want to stop editing this piece of shit video now. And that's another problem that I have with longer videos. It's like, I wouldn't say I'm a lazy person. I don't think I'm a lazy person. But when I have a video that's that long, I always do kind of admittedly put it to the side because I'm like, there's just a mentality inside of me where I'm like, I don't feel like working on this right now. I'll do it later. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because of like the whole scale of the project. But whenever I have a smaller video, whenever I'm making like a smaller video that's like 4 to 6 minutes, like for instance the Spider-Verse video that I made in like 3 days or whatever, I was working on that thing like nonstop, and that's probably just because it was only like 4 to 6 minutes. So with that in mind, I kind of want to start making more videos that are, you know, going back to form, just like the whole 4 to 6 minutes thing. Because I did start doing that for a little bit with the Mega Man video, the Donkey Kong Country video. And I know the Smash, a new foe has appeared video is 8 minutes, but that's kind of like as long as I want something to be. That was like right on the limit. And I also want to do more live stuff. But the thing with that is that like a lot of people do a lot of live stuff. So I want to try and figure out a way to make it so like it's still unique and it's still interesting and it still can, you know, show my personality. Like back again with the dusting off the Steam library video. I thought that was a great video in all honesty because like I felt like it did a good job at showing my personality. It was unique in a sense compared to other live videos, and I just thought overall it was enjoyable. And that's really what I want everything to boil down to, is it's enjoyable and it's also informative. Because I do like to inform people about stuff that I like. You know, all the videos that I make are, you know, about stuff that I have a lot of, you know, experience with and a lot of like history with. And I'm always like, I want to share why I love what I'm talking about so much. You know, even if I'm talking about it in a negative light, like with hardcore or Zelda 2 a little bit. You know, I have experience with both of those games, both of those, you know, pieces of media, and there's stuff I enjoyed about them, but then there were problems with it later on, well, more so with hardcore. But in terms of like Donkey Kong Country, Mega Man 2, Smash Bros, all those more recent videos, those are because of me growing up with those games, and I'm like, hey, I want to talk about them. And, you know, I always try and look for a new angle to do something in. Like I just said, you know, that's why I only make videos about stuff that I want to that I want to talk about, because I feel like I always try and look for something new, something that not many people or any people at all have talked about. Like, I don't necessarily know many people who talked about like why unlocking characters in Smash is so fun, or why in Mega Man 2 the replayability is so good compared to like the other games. Now, there are a few exceptions, of course. Like, everybody ever has like praised Donkey Kong Country for its atmospheric, you know, level design and music and such. But overall, I feel like I do a good with me at least, I do a good job at like finding a new angle to do something, or finding a new hook for a video to make it unique and stand out. So that's really, I wouldn't say, that's really kind of like where I am with the channel right now. I would say this is kind of like a little update. You know, I didn't want to make another update video because I hate update videos so much, because it's just like, hey, sorry I haven't been around in like 2 months. Here's me talking about something. I'm going to make something new. Okay, bye. And then another 2 months go by after that update video is out, and I finally make something that's like half-assed and not good at all. I'm taking another sip of water. So I kind of want to move forward in a sense of like having to rely less on like longevity, and just getting right to the point of something, making it enjoyable, just like right out the gate. Well, not right out the gate, maybe having a little build up, just making it less bloated. And I also want to do more live stuff, like I've said, but I want to make it, again, you know, not just me playing a game and being like every, you know, live commentary video guy ever, you know, who's just trying to be like something like Star Underscore or German985. I want to try and spin that in a way, in a sense, where it also gives me, you know, personality as well. Like, it gives me, you know, uniqueness. But I think really that's all I wanted to talk about with this podcast. Again, I'm sorry there hasn't been an episode in a while, but this was never something that I was going to do consistently, although I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it where like I make one episode and then 4 months later I make another one. I want to try and do it like 2 times a week at most. I don't know how good I'll keep to that schedule, because, you know, I've never been one to be good with schedules, but we'll see. That's really going to do it. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the Self on Self podcast. Remember, I don't want any guests on here, because if that were to happen, then we would never get anything done, and this podcast would just die. I know this podcast has technically been dead for 4 months, but shut the fuck up. Okay, I'm going to go. Bye.